However, in studio, I have still members of this organization live in studio, and I'll start with Neema. I know her second name can be difficult, so I'm going to allow each of them to, be part of the show, because it's not an interview, it's a conversation. So guys, karibuni sana. I'm going to allow Neema to start by saying good morning and, introducing yourself, telling us how many hats you wear, in what capacity you're here, and really what to expect out of this conversation this morning.
Hi, I'm Neema Bagamuhunda. I'm a performing artist for a very long time. I also work in media. I'm a producer and a puppeteer at Buni Media. I also dabble in writing for TV, but my favorite part of my work is dance. I'm a choreographer and a dancer, and I also try to put together dance productions. Yeah.
And when we hear productions, no one really ever thinks of that or think of dance productions. People think of film production, movie productions. They don't think there's a dance production. And I like that you guys are bringing out something that is there, but not as well talked about. So thank you very much for, of course, creating time. So we're going to narrow down to the choreography today. All right, no problem. And of course, he said, I prefer to be called Mr. Ondiege.
Yes.
Good morning, sir. Karibu.
Morning. Asante sana.
Yes.
Yes, kwa majina naitwa Ondiege. I am a contemporary dance choreographer and a dancer. I am the artistic director of the company Dance into Space, which does dance productions. And we are the ones who are producing this work locally after partnering with the Birmingham Repertory Theatre, who are represented here by Tyrone.
Yes.
And so Tyrone writes the script, and Neema and Jared are doing the choreography, and I am behind the production as the production company that is doing the work locally.
Amazing. So there's a whole teamwork here making things a success. I usually am a lover of teamwork, so I'll start by appreciating what you guys are doing together, even in collaboration with the United Kingdom representation that is coming in shortly. So remember, like I said earlier on, the panel is made up of 3 people, and of course joining us virtually shortly will be of course Tyrone, who is the director and scriptwriter, just like Mr. Ondiege has said, when it comes to this particular dance production. Let's start with the assessment of mambo ya usanii, it's SANAA chart. I would bring in a hip-hop artist here, some celebrity who does some style of music, and Kenyans would relate. I don't know if you gave me an overview of where we stand as dance productions in this country, from either of your perspectives. So we can start from there. Mr. Ondiege, and then I can go to
thank you. Yes, dance production is more like any other production in the arts, whether it is film or music, in terms of the process, the elements employed in it, the logistics, the funding, the resources required, and of course in terms of teams, And dance is even much bigger, if you ask me, because I will tell you that it is one that kind of brought everything together, because what dance has done today, it has even married film. It has incorporated theater. It is working within the multimedia aspect, working with digital technology, yet bringing in the body and space. And this kind of linkage is what makes dance probably a much bigger production process than the others, because it brings all the others together. And again, it is contemporary dance, and the contemporary dance is crafted out of the experience of theater. Theater brings all the other art forms. Literature, architecture, design, environmental issues, social issues, existential issues, and then body and voice and music and space. So again, I think this is the best in terms of being the genre that is multimedia, than many genres. So yes, dance is a major production, and it is picking up in this country. We are seeing companies coming up to embrace dance processes.
All right, I like how he said, that it is picking up, and we're seeing companies beginning to embrace from his perspective. I'd love to hear if Neema then shares your sentiments.
I think dance productions, people do watch dance productions, but they don't relate to them as dance productions.
They watch but do not relate.
They don't look at it as a big-time production the way they look at theater. But it's like Ondiege said, it's the same process. You need to put your team together, you need to put the logistics in place. And when people think of dance, sometimes they think if it's more than 5 minutes, then it's not a dance. We have dance shows that are 3 hours long, 2 hours long, 1 hour long, 30 minutes, 15 minutes, depending on what you want. And we have like solos, duets, trios, quartets.
Oh, in dance?
Yes. And then you can decide to have a fantastic set. It's changing, it's dynamic. You can have a plain set. You can have, and you have your story within the movement of the people. And it doesn't always have to be like cha-cha-cha-cha-cha-cha. It can be slow, it can be lyrical, it can be fast, it can be up and down. So that's what dance is. It is to be looked at as more than just, it's a part of the storytelling using the body. Yeah.
All right, I like when you say it is storytelling using the body, expressions, and you can watch an entire skit with dance.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, this is actually going to get more interesting. I can see that Tyrone has joined us all the way from, of course, the United Kingdom, Birmingham. It's good to have you. Good morning. I'm hoping it's still the same time over there.
No, we're 2 hours behind you, so it's about, what is it? It's just 6:15 in the morning here. But good to see you.
We are so humbled by the fact that you woke up so early to join us on the morning drift. We had breakfast already.
Yes, well, I've had a cup of tea.
Oh, great. So we had a bit of perspectives on how dance production is actually carried out and being, appreciated in Kenya. But first, let's start with, just introducing yourself. And we have it clear that you are the director and scriptwriter of Raundi Mwenda, and of course in collaboration with Dance Into Space. So please just give us an overview of where you think dance production stands as far as art is concerned, even globally, if you may.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm a theatre maker. I'm an actor, playwright, and a director. And but I believe in, I suppose, total theatre. What I mean by total theatre is theatre that draws in, a bit like Don Diego was just saying a moment ago, that draws in all the different elements: voice, movement, physicality. And my work my early work was involved in experimental theatre, and we were, if you like, untrained, and so we just used what we felt was right. So we would use movement if it felt the right way of expressing an idea. So, and then in terms of dance specifically, I've been involved in various dance organizations here in the UK. There's a company based in the north of England called Phoenix Dance Company, based in Leeds. RJC, Reggae Jazz Contemporary. They are another company who've just celebrated their 30th anniversary. And what I found with dance is, it's one of those art forms where people work harder. I mean, dancers work much harder than actors in general, because they're using their body as an expressive tool. And what I find is that by combining the theatre background and influences that I have with the dance world, there's always a layer that you can add to the storytelling. And that's what we're bringing together in this project, is to bring together the elements of visual language, the elements of spoken language, the elements of dance and performance that sits behind that, characterization.
Amazing. And I like that you've given us the international perspective and really the experience you have had. We are looking forward to Raundi Mwenda. We already are looking forward to that. And I want to pick the aspect of storytelling. And I want to really hear from Neema some of the stories you have been able to tell in choreography. We might want to trace back on how impactful these stories have been to society, if any. You could pick one or two.
Wow, this is taking me back. One of the first pieces I did was called Cleansing. It was it was a kind of ritual dance about cleansing, about African rituals of cleansing. When something bad has happened. So we do that all the time, but we don't realize it. We do it through prayer, we do it through cleansing our bodies, we do it through taking meditation breaks, we do it through going on holiday, but it's a cleansing. So it does impact society, so to speak. But the story we're telling right now, it's about the railway, the East African Railway.
That is Raundi Mwenda?
Yeah, that's Raundi Mwenda. So we want to take the journey from Mombasa, when the engineers arrived, George and Florence, and all the way to Kampala. And we tell that through dance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing how history comes into play. I want to hear from Danks, Mr. Ndiege. I'm sorry I called you by the organization. And then we could hear how this then, how you guys got to be in collaboration. But first, let me hear where you came from with this idea of the railway.
Well, the idea of the railway has been there since probably 1896, But the concept, came from Neema's partner called Jared. He's not here with us. He's a choreographer and Tyrone. So basically, Tyrone started off the idea of working with a Kenyan choreographer to explore the story of the railway line, the Lunatic Express, and it is full of stories. That railway line is as long as 112 or something years since. It's 120 something years, old, and definitely it is all about the story of the establishment, the story of the transport system that was being established by the colonial powers, the story of imperialism, the story of resistance, the story of displacement, stories of investment.
True.
So there are so many stories that this railway line comes with. And as Tyrone is still constructing the script, because it's a work in progress, we are spoiled for choices. We don't know where and what to say more than the other. Until today, the railway line still has a story. Very current issue is SGR, and of course the expansion and the development and the technological differences 120-something years later, and the stories of the communities that have heroes who are being seen as heroes who resisted, but again are seen as villains or people who opposed the development. They're being seen as terrorists to some extent, but the communities who they were defending see them as heroes, and these are huge stories. So we as a company, and having had experience in telling stories, part of our background, by the way, as a company is that we work with people with disability in mixed ability contemporary dance. You'll see at Dance Into Space Foundation on Facebook and on our website that we tell stories about rights.
Amazing.
We tell stories about society, and now we want to tell the story about the railway line.
Yes.
Just like we've told the stories about the issues that affect people with disability, their sexuality, the disability rights, through our dance programs. And many, many other years before that, we were doing stories like what Neema was expressing, given an example of, the cleansing story, the stories of healing in Africa, the stories of reconciliation. And when we are affected by things, when we are faced with some adversities or some challenges in society, we as artists respond by transforming those stories, existential issues, into performance.
And I'm so grateful that you brought in the fact that you are not just dancing for entertainment, but you actually bring out real life issues through these particular dances, and they speak to masses. And I want to, make it on a light note just to challenge Tyrone. The name of this particular, production this time is Raundi Mwenda. You're the script writer, and I want to understand on behalf of the team, number one, if you understand the meaning of of the topic and why you as a team settled on that particular name. It's quite a story, but yes, just make us understand why this was the best title for this particular production.
The whole project is called Platform Tales Lunatic Line, and I was very interested in how that would, rather than using, if you like, the language of the colonialist on one level, what would the language of the street think of the piece? Right. So the project is one name, and that has its origins with the idea of exploring the world through the railway system. But this particular story has such a specific connection in Kenya that I thought it needed. It felt natural that it should have a Kenyan title. So we, between us, put different names on the table. And when this one came up, I looked at it and I thought, what does it mean? And I thought, I was told by Neema the idea of crazy movement. And I thought, in some ways, that sums up the story we're telling. We're telling the story of crazy movement in terms of the building of the railway line. We're telling the story of crazy movement in terms of aspects of the performance that will come through in the storytelling. So I thought this was the perfect title. We sort of lived with it for a few days, and then it became the title of the piece. And so it was an organic and a collaborative process in terms of searching for a name and landing on one. And as I say it more often, Raundi Mwenda, it's sort of more the title of the piece that we're working on, and I feel very, very comfortable and very pleased with it, because I think in this piece, the exploration of language feels like a natural part of the telling of the story of the building of this railway line, beginning back in 1895 with the British government.
Yes. All right, amazing. I like that. I know you might want to add. Do you want to add on that, on how you guys came to the Raundi Mwenda? I understand you said there's crazy movements. Trust me, as you guys speak, we're trying to actually picture this production.
Yes.
Because the crazy movements and the travels and the displacement, we can already try and picture it. We can visualize it. Please add to why you felt as a team again you'd settled on the word Raundi Mwenda.
Okay.
Well, because there's another layer to this, because the whole, in some ways, we're working in a crazy way. That here I am in the UK, working with the team in Nairobi, and I'm with my partner here, my collaborative partner, Judy Owen, who's the producer here, working with a team in Nairobi to create a dance piece, a very physical thing, and yet we're doing it online. And it's that has to be crazy on some.
Nema, I don't know if you feel the craziness as well. The good thing is that this is all about usanii, and I'm told artists can be crazy. Yeah. Creativity sometimes can be crazy. Yeah. Nema, you want to add on what Tyrone is saying?
Yeah, when the piece began last year, Platform Tales Lunatic Line, it was a collaborative three-way project. There was Tyrone, there was us in Nairobi, and then there was a team in South Africa, Lutando Arts Academy. There was Luyanda and the partner. Tyrone, what was his name?
Nomasonto.
So they put up something in South Africa, we put up something in Nairobi, and they put up something in the UK.
Amazing.
And this streamed online at the same time. So it's also kind of crazy that we were able to sort of pick elements from the South African performance and the UK performance, and we all borrowed from each other. And that's also, we all have railway lines from the British government. So that was their story, our story, and the UK story. And we tell it all together at the same time. That's also kind of a Raundi Mwenda in its own way.
Okay.
And this time we have a two-way collaboration. Lutando is still invited as an observer to also comment on the process. And it's still also crazy, like he said. We are working with the UK, and we are here in Nairobi. And we're telling the story of the railway, and still it's the real story of the real railway is still getting crazier. Politically, financially, there's a lot of strings pulling. There's a lot of moving parts. So it's still a crazy Raundi Mwenda. It's, the port is now in the middle of the land, and so yeah, a lot of craziness all around. She
said the port is in the middle of the land, quite artistic again to say. I want to hear from Mr. Ondiege, and then we give you a piece of one of the things you have done. So people can feel a bit of what they're talking about in dance production. But Mr. Ondiege, please add to this, and then you can, usher us into your first of its own kind.
Yeah, Raundi Mwenda. Let's look at the history of the Lunatic Express and listen to what they thought about it when, in 1896, they wanted to establish a railway line in Africa. They describe it as something that they don't know where it is going. Yes, they know where it is starting from, the ocean. But hinterland, nobody knows how the terrain looks. Nobody knows what's in there. Nobody knows what they want to do with it. Nobody knows what exactly the railway wants to do inside there. Okay. But there's a general feeling that the trade that has begun along the ocean, might want to penetrate, and wherever it goes, it will be able to generate business, it will be able to generate towns, and then again, it is the railway line that establishes the urban system of the hinterland. It becomes a crazy idea where the people who were established in the first place did not know exactly what it is going to serve as a purpose for establishing it in Africa. But of course, it was going to eventually bring business and establish towns and the eventual growth of what we have today as Africa and as Kenya. And again, crazy because it is the way people are working, the way we are working.
Yes.
And then the way it was established, you know, the building of the railway line meant people were displaced, you know, and so many challenges, you know, economically until 100 plus
whole
years.
Indian community here.
Yeah,
Yes.
it brought a whole Indian community here who established themselves, and they had a
Intermarriage.
place. They had a place in the social structure. You know, the Europeans were first.
Yes.
The Indians were third. Africans were sixth. In that structure,
Yes.
the railway line comes to, the train itself comes to exemplify this by having first class,
Oh,
you know,
yes.
for the aristocrats,
The social class.
you know, second class for the, you know, middle, you know,
Yes.
lower middle class,
Wow.
and then third class for the rest. Okay?
All right.
Really crazy. And again, it has some nostalgia for those of us who used it. Very convenient, very much on time, very much reliable, very comfortable, affordable. And then what? A crazy thing happens. For about 25 years, we lost the railway line in this country.
Okay.
Then now it's back, but with certain interesting, perspectives. The Chinese are over. Now they're all over it. Initially it was the Europeans, and then it was us. Maybe we ran it down. No, the Kenya Railways just went somehow. You know, those of us who used to like it.
Are
stopped
all
seeing
these things told in this dance production?
Now that's why we are spoiled for choices in terms of storytelling.
Okay.
You know,
This
we
is
have
really Raundi
so much
Mwenda.
to tell.
Yes.
The railway line that went defunct at some point, then now it was revived as SGR.
Oh,
Here
yes.
it is. The Chinese are running it. What about that? Do you want to say that, or do you want to look at it the way it was in the initial period? And then even when it was coming in, the craziness that it brought, the communities that fought, you know, the heroes that we celebrated, our Syokimau, you know, and the resistance, the heroes, the Kotelela Arab Samoei, you know, why were they resisting? And then people who foresaw this, you know, everybody said, every community that had a leader who could see the train said, oh, there's a snake coming and it's spewing smoke.
Oh, yeah.
And then what do? We should arm ourselves. What do you do with snakes when you see them? We arm ourselves. Okay, so people, you know, along the line where it was being established, people had to arm themselves. Somebody called Mugo Kabiro here saw it. Somebody called Syokimau. Somebody called Mekatilili resisted. Somebody called, Samoei huko. So watu ni wengi, stories ni mingi.
Stories ni mingi, watu ni wengi.
Kuna stories of triumphs, kuna
Yes.
stories of resistance, kuna stories of losses, kuna stories of, heroism. On the other side, we're looking at George Whitehouse, a 39-year-old, man who is given the contract to build the railway line from Mombasa to Uganda.
Yes.
And how is that? His wife is Florence, isn't it? By the time it reaches Kisumu, Kisumu is now being called Port Florence, you know?
All right.
And things like
All
that.
right.
So many interesting stories. And again, there's another Florence in the story. Not just the Florence who's the wife of George Whitehouse. And all these
There's
beautiful...
many,
And I want to go back to Tyrone because he's script writing this right now.
Yeah.
I'm looking at so many names coming up right now. I'm seeing a lot of personalities in this journey. How are they going to be, I know we are yet to see Raundi Mwenda, but how are you incorporating all these personalities in the story? Are we seeing specific people dancing specific ways to bring us specific energies? What is the script like? Perhaps just give us a glimpse of what it takes to bring out this all, different energies in one story. All right, we're trying to get his sound. All right, sorry, we have lost Tyrone shortly because of a bit of a technical hitch. Tyrone, we'll come back to you because of a bit of your sound, but we're checking that quickly. But let me just hear from, from you guys, especially Neema, and then we could look at one of your videos. I'm just going to mention some of the few that, I have been familiar with. There's a United Kingdom platform, Tales, that, of course, that has been telling that particular platform, Tales. There is the Kenya and South Africa collaboration. There was the South African flash mob. I hope I'm correct on, you can go to the YouTube channel and start checking this out for the Kenya platform Tales. and the South African platform Tales. And when I get the name Platform Tales in each of these, I'm very curious why they are even called Platform Tales.
It's the story of the railway. All railways have platforms.
Oh, interesting.
From where you board the train. So basically, we're telling the story of the railway. Anytime you want to travel from point A to point B, you go through a platform.
Yeah.
And it was, I think, one of the first images we had was the separation of the classes at the platform. There's these aristocrats in the first class, the Indians in the second class, and the Africans. And the Africans, you know how we carry our baggage. We have live animals, we have sacks of things. This is like 19-something, you know. And then there's the Indian class with their different smells and different goods that they're carrying. Then there's the aristocrats with their nicely packaged. And of course, they're not carrying their own stuff. They're just boarding the trains looking very regal. So the story of the platform, all the transitions of the platform over the years. So what are the changing imagery on the platforms?
Amazing. I like when she said
The
every
lions.
train, the lions.
Yeah, also coming to the platform. And, you know, somehow Africans thinking that the lions enjoy others more than Africans.
Okay.
Why? Because the Africans are living in the environment that the lions are used to, and then the Indians are coming to build the railway, and they have the perfume and everything, and more than 1,000 Indians,
Yes.
you know, are mauled by the lions. You know, more Indians than Africans, and the question is how and why, and that explains when the lion sees the platforms, it becomes, you know, a passenger. I mean, in that way,
Yes.
but really, it is about the train and the journeys that the generations have gone through, and those of us who were taking it earlier on maybe have stories to tell, different from those who were taking it in the 40s. Nema is talking about people coming in with livestock and stuff.
Yes.
You can imagine if in the 80s you could carry chicken and you know, in the train, what about in the 40s? What about in the 30s? But then again, there was a racial difference earlier on.
So many stories.
So many stories. So where were Africans going in with their livestock, and where were the others going in with their briefcases and their nice bags?
All right.
Yeah,
And-
so it's
and
really Raundi Mwenda.
It's crazy indeed. And of course, I want to find out if Tyrone is back. Tyrone, can you now hear us? All right, we're going to take a short, breather here by watching one of the videos, Raundi Mwenda. But we cannot wait to hear from you again. You are a very integral part of this conversation. So we will sort that by all means. As crazy as Raundi Mwenda is, we are going to sort that. But guys, I want to give you a bit of a feel of what this Raundi Mwenda is all about. You're a Kenyan, you are an Indian. From what I pick, anyone who watches this dance production can relate. Historically, this is so enlightening, so awakening, so don't miss it. But before we give you the entire production, take a look at what Raundi Mwenda is all about in a snippet. Look at this video. When I hear that song, it's very familiar, so I'm going to challenge you guys on set. This song is very familiar. And Safari is Journey. And we saw that, those movements, that looks like it was a train. And we saw a train animation, right? Please tell me more about that video. We picked a lot of details, including different sacks. Like I said, someone had a briefcase. Someone had a money bag. If you're watching in Nigeria, you know you saw a money bag. Walk us through that video.
So this time, when we put up the dance production, we're incorporating AR.
Okay.
So that's why you have the small train there. So our set will be, how do you say, sometimes virtual, sometimes video, sometimes animated, and sometimes it's just projected, how do you say, imagery. So on stage you're seeing like something, but on the screen on the back you are seeing the set, the live set, the changing landscape, the trains that are passing by. So we are incorporating AR technology into the dance performance.
Beautiful.
So it takes a lot of planning and tracking and a lot of technical things. So yeah.
So art is not just as easy as everyone thought, especially in dance productions. You guys are giving us a different perspective to art, really. And I want to hear what Mr. Ondiega would say about this particular video. Yes. You know, you just don't come up one day and there's a dance move like that. You know, a lot was incorporated. She said there's a lot of hard work around it, creativity, AR. Please add more.
The body movements begin to kind of depict the train. And the dancers were trying to get creative with giving the image of a train that's moving at one moment. And then there are many other moments that the bodies will depict. You will see them acting. As we've discussed, actually, dance nowadays incorporates all other aspects of all the other genres of the arts, digital technology and stuff, but also acting, also singing,
yes,
also body movement in terms of dance, and a lot of design. And the actors also, you will see the passengers at some point. They will try and depict who the passengers were, how they looked like, and even now. So you will see the bodies showing us the train, showing us passengers, showing us certain issues that we can begin to conclude that this is the society that they lived in at that time. And we will begin to understand Africa and the relationship that the powers that came from Europe had with the Africans out of that. But again, AR, augmented reality.
Yes.
This is a little step ahead of virtual reality.
Okay.
Now, what it does for us who are still working on the stage with bodies and still prefer to be consumed live, we want our bodies in space to also be part of that process. And therefore, bringing in augmented reality suggests that we are going to be seeing physically the way we see people dancing on stage, with the proximity of auditorium and stage, but at the same time, we're going to be in a film theater where we're going to be seeing movies around these physical bodies.
Yes.
So the audience has a chance to see the physical space, the virtual, the physical, the virtual, and the augmented.
Beautiful.
And in terms of looking at the three spaces at the same time. So the audience actually is seeing the camera recording you.
Yes.
So sees you being recorded by camera and sees what the camera records. So in the third space, it is you, the physical body, merged with the virtual set.
Wow.
And this is important for us because the story of the railway may require that we reproduce certain images that we may not be able to access. In fact, Tyrone is playing a very important role because 99.9% of the documentation of the history of just the railway line and even Kenya is in the UK. In terms of media documents, footage, photos were taken by people who either migrated back to the UK or they are still in the museums of the UK. So a lot of information is out there. And it is therefore possible that we can only reproduce it virtually because it will be really unnecessary to reenact that history. But it would be nice to bring the footage or the photos of the image or the images live through augmented reality.
And I want to see if Tyrone is with us. Tyrone, can you hear us? All right, as we get him to just, give us a feedback. Sally Daniels is watching live on Facebook, saying, great show, Anki D, looking lovely. Salamu kwa Sheila na Edgar, wamesalimika sana. And of course, Mwende saying the power of art. I totally agree with you. There's so much power in art, and especially when art comes together, what kind of force might that be, especially in impacting society? And of course, thank you very much, Controller WB, for saying good morning. You can also talk to us at Lookup TV and of course the live stream on Facebook. I'm sure Kenyans have questions. It can come out complex, but of course, ask your questions right here, Mr. Ondiege and Neema and Tyrone joining us from the United Kingdom will be able to break down what exactly is in your head that needs clarity. I've seen the young, I've seen, I don't know if they look like teenagers. So dance and as an art doesn't really pick on an age. I don't know what you'd say about that, because this for me is a variety, except I didn't see many girls in this one. Okay.
It was shot during their winter, so they had to dress warm.
Ah,
And
okay.
they didn't get access to an actual platform, so they're pretending that that's their platform. As you can see from their first movement, they look at the train going by, and people start to clean up the station like happens in the morning. And then the people come in now to board the trains, and then their experiences. It's an African space, so you'll hear different sounds, different beats, different. And the idea of a flash mob is that ordinary-looking people can actually do something together. There's always a sense of unity.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. The sense of unity now even coming in, as much as I talked about age groups, now the sense of unity. And I want to hear from Mr. Ondiege, just as you're watching this looked to me like a lot of young people, and in this current era, we've been looking at, building talents, encouraging people to be, jumping into talents, but we see a lot of youngsters rapping in music. You want to say something about them being involved in stuff like this, like Raundi Mwenda and dance, and telling stories through dance today?
Yes, true. Young people would be easily drawn into dance because they have the energy, and dance requires the energy. But also, dance has just gone beyond the physical body expression.
Yes.
It has become a storytelling process, or say, gadget. And that means that even people who are not physically able, as it were, flexible, strong, and beautifully shaped, and
athletic.
well-trained and athletic looking, are the ones who do it. Actually, other people who don't have those fundamentals are also able to do this dance. As, for example, the ones with disability in our programs. But also people who are elderly. It is possible that this genre of dance, this contemporary dance that also marries digital technology and works with people from different profiles, is the only one that is capable of bringing in these groups of people. We call them marginalized. Call them people who are hitherto not seen in the space as artists. Okay? And it is possible that it is only through our projects that we can bring in elders, for example.
Oh, great.
We have programs that have brought in elders,
Great.
where it's only people above 60
Amazing.
that are coming into dance sessions. Some of them are like classes, but some of them are beginning to take the face of a project where the elders are also becoming artists after retirement. We have programs that are bringing in young people, children, who are still in school, so that they can begin to embrace dance as they grow. But the main practice is definitely going to feature people who are adults who are looking for jobs, because it is also a professional career. So you'll find people who are going to dedicate their time and energies to train so that they become good dancers, and then they can get into the dance industry, because it is growing. There are three main areas of the dance that are growing in the industry.
Yes, please tell us.
What I call the discipline of the dance, which means dancers are getting jobs as dancers. Then there is the pedagogic, the people who have dedicated their time to teach dance, and the dance institutions, dance classes, and dance schools are growing. And then there is the choreographic, people who take the opportunity to just create dance with others. They don't have to be dancers or dance teachers. They may be people like you who have ideas, who want to tell a story.
Yes.
And you want to tell the story using people's bodies. And I have worked with choreographers who are not actually trained artists. Just like some very good novel writers, novelists are doctors, or engineers. Some of them write, and some of them are visual artists. Some of them are politicians or visual artists. When they lose, they can come back to the arts and gain social mileage. So we never say never, and there are so many possibilities for all generations, all people to come back into the arts, to come into the arts.
Beautiful. Yes. I see Tyrone is back. Tyrone, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel more stable now.
Oh, and we can actually see that.
Yeah, I'm on my computer now, and this is actually part of the aspect of the whole project, that over the time that we've been working together, we've got much better at making our communications across the internet and online, and being able to connect up, because when we first started, we had so many hiccups with our communications, but I think we're on our side, we're advancing, and also the team in Nairobi are advancing in our technological savvy, which is also core to the project.
Yes,
that we develop our understanding of what the digital world is bringing to us as artists.
and of course, Mr. Ondiege actually mentioned just what you have, how, integral the digital and the technological aspect is even for the Raundi Mwenda production. And he mentioned a bit of history, and why you are very significant is, having all this history over there, packaged and having the access. And I want to hear from you how that is going. It's been years down the line. Someone would even say decades for that matter. Is it difficult to make this happen, or how is there a challenge?
No, in many ways, for me, it's been an adventure of discovery, because there is so much stuff online, and there is so much stuff over here in the UK. But I just wanted to read you a little ditty that was written by an MP, Henry Leboucher. And this is where some of the spark for the naming came from. What is the use of it? None can conjecture. What will it carry? There's none can define. And in spite of George Curzon's superior lecture, it is clearly naught but a lunatic line. And that was sort of written in 1896. And when he speaks about George Curzon, of course, George Curzon was the Governor General of India, and he was obviously someone who proposed the idea of building this line, which is why the Indians were brought over to help to build it. They'd worked on the Indian line. So I mean, but recently, I mean, just as recently as the night before last, I was looking online at some YouTube clips of Jomo Kenyatta, and looking at that moment in the narrative where the independence came, and what the approach was there. So that's later on in the whole story of, if you take it from the sort of late 1900s into the 20th century, you start to see that there is such an expansive connection of the story between the UK, Britain and Kenya.
Yes.
And so reading modern poetry from Kenya, reading and watching videos of traditional and modern dance, I've been sort of imbibing a whole cultural range of the Kenyan story that before this I was unaware of. And so part of putting the project together is I'm putting a package of links, the ones that I've looked through, and so that becomes almost, that goes with the show, that's sort of, through the website or through Facebook or whatever, we will have a document that gives all the links that are referenced in the material. So that even though we can't tell every element of the whole story, there are bits of it referenced inside the piece that if you want to know more, you click on the link and it'll take you there. So we're not trying, we're trying to get over that problem of such a vast story by getting sort of symbolic elements, character elements, and using those as motifs throughout the piece to tell, what is a fascinating story. The Siokamo story is one that sort of blew my mind right from the beginning, and
yes.
So yeah, from my point, it's a journey of discovery, but also I think reactivating through dance what people already know, people there in Kenya know, but people here in the UK have no idea of. So my hope is that sort of after the performance here, that at some point in the future, we'll get it here in the UK, and I look forward to that day.
And what I picked there as he was ending that, first part of the conversation, I'm saying fast because I'm not wrapping up, was that there is a future. The aspect that there is a future means Raundi Mwenda is just beginning and there'll be more other projects. But also what he has said is there'll be a lot of reference. And now I'm thinking there is deeper meaning to art. Because then the dance will be speaking in action, but even when you get to package it for the rest of the people to watch it, there will be reference. I want to hear from you, Nema, what this means to generations to come. I am actually curious as a Kenyan. I am actually very interested so far because I want to know, like you mentioned so many names behind the railways, the children we give birth to today just know the SGR. Thanks to Raundi Mwenda, they'll get to know the history of the line. So I want to hear some deeper aspects to this particular project when it comes to what he has mentioned as far as the future is concerned.
Well, for me, art is a reflection of the society.
Yeah.
We use art to reflect on the society. So when we tell the story of the lunatic line, the platform tales,
Yeah.
the lunatic line, and we tell Raundi Mwenda, we are basically, sort of archiving history for future generations. So whoever watches who didn't know the history will learn of the history. Whoever gets to watch the recorded version will learn a bit about the history, and if they're curious enough, they'll follow up. We've had so many products of times, plays, paintings, songs that tell the story of the time.
Yes.
And I think it's time we started archiving also our history in dance. We're telling a very
Yes.
lengthy story from 1895 until 2022, and yeah, we can tell it through dance, and anyone who watches it will be able to absorb something from it, and it's also a record for the future.
Sometimes I wish I was not a host so I could just be fully in the conversation because it could be, like you see, mental health has been an issue for so long. But with the changing times, people have said, how about you change the format of or the approach of dealing with mental health? Now, telling a whole history can be boring in books.
Yeah.
But I would watch the dance for hours and have the history recorded straight in my head. I want to hear from Mr. Ondiege on this particular issue. Like she has said, we are recording it for generations to come. But also there is a fascinating aspect on how Kenyans would come in. Dance is a part of the curriculum, we don't know yet. But how many more children, like you said, you work with children, would be part of telling this history?
Great. I believe that new stories should find new ways of being told. And some of the new stories are the oldest stories on earth. To the new generations, they're very new. Dance is one of the new ways of telling old stories that have not been told properly. You know that our system of education has not empowered us enough in terms of knowing the real history of this country. We know that the arts have not been integrated into the system of education yet, properly.
Properly,
Yes,
okay.
just a process. Yes, talent is exposed to performing arts, but not made to be artists as such.
Okay.
People drive themselves to become who they are because even big institutions that would foster the acquisition of skills in the arts are missing. To a great extent, it has to be a very practical thing. What we have in the universities are still very theory-based, and also lack of facilities. Dance requires facilities. Arts requires facilities in terms of training, and that's probably the biggest challenge that we have. That's why the system of education is not yet taking it up fully. It is expensive, we know that. Out there, children start dancing from the age of 3, and those schools are created specifically to teach them dance until they graduate when they're professionals at the age of 15 or something.
Can I interject there a little bit and go back to Tyrone on that because we're doing a bit of comparison. Tyrone, how is it there? You've mentioned the age group, 3 years old, and there is that, reception and support for these children. They are nurtured, they are supported through it. How is the experience where you are in the UK with this kind of growth?
Well, I mean, we have the Arts Council of England who fund the arts, and even here in Birmingham, there's a company, Ace Dance and Music, who were part of our collaboration last year, and they have classes on Saturdays and Sundays for everything from 3-year-olds up to 15-year-olds. Some of the people who come along as 3-year-olds with them eventually join the company as maybe 19 and 20-year-old apprentice dancers. I've seen one Iona who worked with who joined the company as a 20-year-old dancer, and now she leads the education arm of the company as an older and more experienced dancer. Ace have also, Noma Santo, who Nima mentioned earlier, from South Africa, and Luanda came over from South Africa. Luanda created a piece for Ace Dance and Music. Noma Santo came over. She's here now. And they'll be launching their new work in the autumn. So there is a very sort of increasingly strong infrastructure. And I mentioned Leeds earlier in the north. Leeds, Phoenix Dance Company started off in 1980 as 5 16-year-old black boys who wanted to dance. I kind of worked with them on tour technically, and they established the company Phoenix. That company is now, how old? 40 years old now, and they are they have their own building, and also because of that, they generated a dance school in Leeds, Northern School of Contemporary Dance. Then they generated a building where the Phoenix are now inhabit that building alongside Northern Ballet Theatre. So there's a contemporary dance company and a ballet theatre in a brand new building that's probably only about 15 years old now. So it's sort of, there has been a growth and an understanding. I think there's an understanding that art is an important part of culture, and that culture is what we live for. We kind of like to delude ourselves that we live for money, but actually what we live for is for culture, for the exchange of human relationships, and that's culture.
All right. The exchange of human relationships.
Yeah, so just coming back to the question you raised earlier around the future of this, and therefore new generations and how they're going to be part of it.
Yes.
Okay, Raundi Mwenda is actually Sheng.
Yes, it is.
You know, it was, Nani did not say that. Because, we searched and searched and searched, and it came from us that actually this term, Raundi Mwenda, we have used it, and it means so many things to us. Wase wa mtaa, hapa Nairobi. For those of us who grew up in Nairobi, I grew up in Nairobi in the 70s and 80s, but Raundi Mwenda is a new Sheng. But it's relatively old. So it suggests something to guys. Young people are picking up Raundi Mwenda as an idea of guys who are just being crazy, getting out of the box, doing new things, and breaking the ceiling and whatnot. And at the same time, it's about traveling and knowing and growing, and knowing the world, knowing your space.
Yes.
So I think the future can embrace with this title. They can identify with this title. Young people can pick it up, and they can relate with it. And this is a reason, the reason being that if they can remember what it means to them, then they can see how the railway line has been exactly what this Raundi Mwenda exemplifies. It is because of the railway line that we have Nairobi. Starting from a small tin house like this, which is a post for the constructors. So you can imagine how this 39-year-old guy determined the rest of this, the future of this country. Wow. And so how about starting now to determine the future, knowing the history? So young people should be able to take this history and project another 100 years. Where are we going to be?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And what has it done to urbanization, for example, the growth of cities in the future? Railway lines determine the future, the growth of cities, the direction of towns and whatnot.
Urbanization.
So, urbanization. So right now, if we take it up and decide that, okay, the new SGR has gone into the wild and has taken up our national game, are we not seeing a town coming up right in the middle of that national game reserve in the future? Do we want to tell the children to be aware of this? Yes, they should know that SGR is still going on, and wherever it will pass, just like it passed 100 years ago plus, it created towns.
Okay.
So now the story of the railway line affects our urbanity, it affects our society, it affects our culture. You know, how it has influenced our culture, how our dances are not just going to be traditional dances depicting the Kilume dances of the Kamba while they're resisting the railway line, and the traditional dances of the Kalenjin, while Samoa is rallying his people, or Siokima, or Nani, our lady from the coast, Mekatilili, how she used dance and music to mobilize people to resist, okay?
Wow.
And then the dances that we have influenced by the train because it came with foreigners. So now we have children in Nairobi doing ballet.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have guys doing hip hop. But that is also part of our culture of today, and it is going to be part of our culture of tomorrow. So the children of today should be able to embrace this and strategize using the history that we have, that we've gone through the last 100 years, strategize what this country is going to look like in the next 100 years, given the development of the train.
Given the development of the train, I like how the aspects of culture have come out. You know, and one of the things that Tyrone said that I really picked seriously was the human relation. And I want us to, because we've talked about culture a lot, to take a look at Agwata, one of those ritual, is it healing dances? I don't know how you will all respond to this one. Trust me, I haven't watched it prior either. I don't know if Tyrone has, or if you have.
I have. I was part of the production.
Okay. So those who have, please do not be spoiler alerts. Let's take a look at the Agwata production and really share your thoughts. Sally Daniels, what do you think of this dance production? Would it tell a story of your culture? Does it speak to you? Will it have spoken to you by the time it ends? Leave your comments and we'll be right back. Still with this conversation on Raundi Mwenda. Here is Agwata.
Erebe ma natuma woi nigo. Kose erebe manyatu manyako nogo. Bende erebe baikom bende manyatu ma ongor nogo. So erebe yanyol maniwono nyatu ma ongor nogo. Oyo. Dom duto winchwet Nyasaye. Nyasaye ema nochweyo gi kamano kendo omiyogi mich ma opogore opogore. Yesu ni ayiwo ogwatwa ne dongo ne dundo akogela dundo wangi. Ano maneno mondo ikeni dhako maber. Mondo nyuol go nyithindo motegno manyalo timo sport maber. Nyithindo gichon, idadwa ni mondo isom. Joma somo gichop nyaka university. Kamano. Temura tema. ceremony, we should get a president, going to be. Dari punya lego, punya ogenya. Itu orang nama tapi dia Joko University. Itu mana president. Itu.
Want to grow your business? Broadcast your sermon, share birthday wishes, make funeral announcements, produce adverts and documentaries? Then book and advertise with us today by calling us on +254 700 893 542
700-893-542
or email us on sales@luke-up.tv.
Yippee! Kamata plotting at 349K. Oh yes, for only 349,000 Kenyan shillings, you become a plot owner at the Great Oasis Gardens, Nanyuki. The Great Oasis Gardens, Nanyuki is located along the Nanyuki-Rumuruti Road, only 11 minutes from the Cedar Mall and right opposite Mount Kenya Wildlife Estate. This is the best place to establish the getaway home that you have always dreamt about. For every 349,000 that you deposit or pay as installment towards any of Optiven's plot of land, you get 10K cash back instantly. Jaza basi twende Nanyuki. Bigger is indeed better.
You know what? Fashion is a form of self-expression. Be it a particular place at any particular time. Unajua fashion inaweza kuwa lifestyle, inaweza kuwa clothing, inaweza kuwa footwear, au inaweza kuwa accessories.
Tune in this Saturday from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. as we talk about fashion and most importantly, brainstorm the freedom of expression through fashion. See you on Saturday.
Ni Yesu ameniondola ya pressure, hata bila kitu bado mina tesa. Juhudi ziko chini kama mkeka, nipate katikati, ngoma ikicheza kwa kiti unipati. Blessa amenitoa niko noma katikati, sasa niko grounded kama party.
Bila gangi utajiri, hata nibaki na sufuri. Yesu umenitosheleza.
Good morning and welcome back. Thank you very much for staying tuned to the Morning Drift. It's been quite an exciting morning so far. And within me and inside of me, I feel so, alive because I am able to then walk through history in my day and age and still realize how things came into place and even how the future looks like just by following through history. And thanks to the amazing dance, I'll call them practitioners or, artists, putting these stories and bringing them back to life. Not just that we can read them, but we can actually see them, visualize and be part of them. And I think dancing also brings in your mentality and your spirit. And I just want to say thank you very much for, walking this Raundi Mwenda with us. Kenyans, it's very easy for you to relate. I know even Kenyans in diaspora can, when you hear Raundi Mwenda, you're like, that sounds Kenyan, just like Tyrone said it. And as we're concluding, we're looking at how then can we all come in and make this a reality for our children, the media, so that if we're telling the stories of Kenya or the railway line, that you are part of it. But how can you be part of it is the question right now. Welcome back on set. I don't know if I should start with Tyrone. We're seeing you all the way from the UK, partnering with, the Dance into Space and NEMA. And that's one of the things we're seeing, a partnership here. But in your perspective, how can more people be part of this project and tell more stories?
Okay, well, first of all, let me just say that this project is being funded by the British Council, as was our last collaboration together. And what that funding has allowed is the first stage of the development last year, getting to know each other as artists, and this stage in terms of actually starting to produce work together. And the other partner in this project is Birmingham Repertory Theatre, who I'm an associate artist there. And I suppose in the long term, what this represents from my point of view is the start of an ongoing collaborative relationship between myself and other artists here in Birmingham and probably wider England, and artists in Kenya, and the ones that we've met and the ones we're yet to meet. But in terms of building on that, I suppose what I imagine is a world in which the kind of the energies that culture brings to the table are recognized by, I don't know, industrialists, by financiers that sort of start to think, well, actually, those relationships and those kind of contacts and that kind of connection is something worth investing in. And naturally, for me, the first people to invest are the audience. And so looking forward to an audience seeing the piece, experiencing the piece, and starting to understand what we're trying to do here, in terms of me as an artist here in the UK, working with Ondiega, Jared and Nima, and just what it is that artists try to do. They kind of try to bring the truth to the world and try to tell stories that are hidden. And I think that's what we're doing in this project particularly. So come along, see the work, understand what we're doing. We're blending live with digital, and we're creating a new paradigm for how we can relate to each other, the old colonial country, if you like, and the new independent country, and charting a new future of partnership.
So before I let Tyrone go, I'm looking at, telling stories that are hidden. Kenya might be our start. Are there any other countries you're working with?
Well, ongoing relationship with South Africa. Before we hit the issues of travel and COVID and everything like that, I've been to South Africa. I haven't been to Kenya yet, but I'm looking at it. And also back home, I was born in St. Kitts in the Caribbean, and I've got relationships working there. I'm due to be going out to perform a solo show that with the company I'm associate with, Forced Entertainment. I'm due to go to Kyoto in October to perform that. And so it's kind of being in touch with culture and audiences wherever they are, but nothing specific other than those two things at the moment.
All right, and I must say, because it's a Friday, it's easy for me to say it's good to see a black man, up in the United Kingdom saying we're going to bring back these hidden stories and start, stand strong. And I'm curious, they laughed, but I'm going to go harder on this one and ask, do you dance? Have you been part of a play?
Yes. I used to move more in my younger days, but no, I'm not a dancer. I think what I've learned though is, as I say, I started off with experimental theatre, and as a young person, if it involved dancing, it involved moving. If it involved choreographic sequences, I would do that. Right. But my body isn't a dancer's body, let's put it that way. But I know that movement, it comes from inside. It isn't all about technique. So I'll say I dance. Okay. And certainly on the dance floor, I dance.
All right, let me hear from Dance into Space, CEO. He said, movement is from the inside. Yes. Let's hear that from you, and then also your closing remarks. But first, just add on that. I think he's actually very happy from the inside and young inside as well.
Yes, great. Movement is from inside. Actually, movement is from inside our mothers when we are still moving in the womb. Yeah, and then we begin to kind of memorize that and learn everything else that relates to the body kinesthetically, just by interacting with stuff, with space, with objects. And so every human being is a dancer, until they accept. Those who don't want to dance will not dance, but those who want to dance will dance, doesn't matter where. What he said, which would be interesting to just as a summary, is the audience building efforts that we have at the company, and even as artists in general, not just dancers. It's a challenge we have in this country to build our audience. And that also is related to the challenges of the lack of resources to keep projects going, the lack of funding. He talked about British Arts Council. And we are also actually funded now, partly, by the British Council. It is important to note that we are telling our story as Kenyans, but we don't have resources coming from Kenya to do this story. We don't have that government art council that's supporting the arts. So these are some of the things that we might want to begin to talk about, maybe in a different conversation. But then what is the role of the arts, and how does government perceive the arts and the artists? What are the policies that are supporting or not supporting? What are the policies that are missing? And how can we also generate structures that would support this professional career, this noble work of the arts in general? He talked about people creating their own buildings, having their own facilities, starting their own schools. But on our side, we also want to do the same. But what is it that is lacking? What support do we need? And who do we go to? That's something that we need to talk about. And then audiences. Very important for us is to cultivate an audience that will follow the works in the future, especially dance. We've always been seen as people who work in process. Working has always been a process, not really the end, not really an achieved thing, because we still don't have fully reliable audiences for our works. It's always about experimental opportunities, experimenting with the idea, experimenting in the space, and experimenting with the audiences. I can, vouch, all of us sitting in this room and walking around as technicians, when was the last time you watched dance productions? And you'll see probably in the last 15 years, none of us have watched dance productions apart from the two of us. And that is a question which, if asked anywhere, you'll always find the same answer. That, what do you mean? If they've watched, then they've watched a foreign thing. That is the unfortunate scenario with Kenyans. If they've watched a dance choreography, then it was brought by the French or the Germans, who we also work with, and they also take us to their countries. And we get watched by people there. But here we don't get watched by our own people. The excuse that maybe we don't market well, or we don't do publicity properly, or we are just small organizations, is only because we are small, yes, we don't have resources to advertise on TV, to advertise on radio about a forthcoming performance, so that we can fill our halls, so that we can become popular. And in the media also, do they really understand what other art forms are? Is it just stand-up comedy for you guys and music? Do you know that there's multimedia, there's film, there's dance, there is theater, there's stage play productions? And as we think about audience building, we are also challenged because we know that, for example, the last 2 years has been down audience-wise, Corona and things. So this augmented reality project is even somehow by default a result of this Corona thing. Because we are asking ourselves, how do we keep our work going? How do we bring our audiences to watch us? But now if we can do things virtually, then we need to go that direction as artists to build productions that will build audiences virtually, as opposed to the traditional audience that will have to come to the theater.
I don't want you to stop talking, but because of time, I'm going to ask you a very straight question. There are so many Kenyans watching today, and Kenyans all over the world, and many other people who are so interested in Raundi Mwenda, to be specific. Building the audience, as you have said, how then can they particularly be part of Raundi Mwenda?
Yes.
Are we looking at our website? Are we looking at your social media? Are we registering? How do we come to be part of it?
Thank you. I think in about a week's time, we'll have a clear link where people can send monies and buy tickets, basically. But now, yes, we have very good footprint digitally. We have Raundi Mwenda on Facebook as a page. We also have Raundi Mwenda's presence on Instagram and all other platforms that the company Dance into Space has, including Twitter and YouTube. So definitely younger people and people who are connected would be able to link up with us. And the social media platform for us is not just about advertising the play and telling you the time and the venue. It's also about engaging people in the conversations around this history of the railway line.
Yes.
There are people who are out of this country who are families of those Indians who built the railway line. There are people who are in the UK, in India, and South Africa, and other parts. And the railway line has a story that is similar because it is the same people who did it in India, did it in Nepal, I think, the British, did it in Kenya, did it in South Africa, and Nigeria. So we have really a universal story that people, through social media, can chip into and share their own stories on that platform. So people are welcome, therefore, to follow us on those platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, basically on Dance into Space. And Neema can add on something.
Before she does, I've had this moment with Tyrone and now with you before I let you go entirely. You have mentioned so many names, and some of these people are still alive, yet not recognized. Do you plan, or do you hope to meet some of them? Will they come out? Have you interacted with some of them? I'm curious, because then I'd love to even have them on set. Celebrate them at least.
Great.
These are the unsung heroes, would say.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for suggesting that. Actually, we have that in plan. And there's some elders, there's some old people we have already had the conversation with. There are people who have also given us material that they have. The Railway Museum is also there with references to people, like photographers, and we can get their links, their contacts. Some of them are foreigners. Some of the best photographers, I think, were Indians, you know. And so their families are still around. This is one of the things we are doing, and it will be very interesting. Once we get any of them, we will contact you so that you can have a conversation with them, especially anybody from the descendants of the families of those who survived the man-eaters and those who documented the history of the railway line.
Beautiful. I'm sure the whole world would love to now see them actually and hear from them.
We hope to bring them.
They might even do a dance choreography for their own. You never know, Nima. And thank you very much for that, insight. Nima, maybe you're going to wrap this up for us.
I think it's important to mention that the dance performance will be on 30th June.
Great.
At the Kenya National Theatre from 6:30 p.m. So you're welcome. But before that, we've organized dance communities where they're not necessarily dancers. Anybody in the artistic community who's interested to see the interaction of bodies in space with the virtual reality can follow our process. They can come into meetings on Saturdays and sort of see where we are with the process, learn from it, learn how we learned about the AR. So we can share those links to the artistic community, those who want to experiment with AR. We have had a few lessons. We have the links to that. And the idea is to just share the knowledge. But you're welcome to National Theatre. Please come and watch the performance. The tickets are 500 shillings.
Oh, great.
Also to add on to the workshops that Tyrone and his colleagues have been having with us virtually, they're also open to people who are interested in following what augmented reality is. It has been a 5 weeks workshop training us on what AR is, and I think that is also open to the public and people who are interested in following the work.
Follow Dance into Space, just DM us, we can share the links with you.
All right, this thing is very open to you guys. Now the choice is up to you. From what I've heard from my panelists today, including Tyrone all the way in the UK, is that this is to even, make human relation even stronger. Technology was to take away human relation, not in a bad way, but it would meet more on the machines. But the fact that they're bringing us together, even more mentally and in history, I think you need to be part of this. Of course, just talk to them on their social media platforms. Tyrone, I'm seeing public demand here, demands that you say something, probably say goodbye.
Thank you, very good. Yeah, goodbye, and we will film the performance and see how we can distribute that afterwards. But we're also looking at how we might make the access wider on the day. But we'd love you to see you in the audience at the Kenyan National Theatre on the 30th of June. And thank you for having me here.
Are you coming to the National Theatre physically this time? Do we expect you? You haven't come to Kenya.
The British Council budget doesn't stretch that far, but if there was some benefactor, I think if there was some benefactor, I would definitely be there. But I will get to Kenya National Theatre. I will get to Nairobi one day soon, and I look forward to it.
One day soon.
If not now, yeah, one day soon.
Amazing. Allow me to give a shout out to One Sauti Soul. It's a singing group, you know, in Kenya, and they have a song that says, "Steady rocking in the midnight train." Yeah, so you need to probably have them incorporated, who knows, in one of your songs, because it's Steady Rocking on the Midnight Train. But wasn't that a story, a beautiful story of, you know, the beautiful moments on the train, the difficult, the easy, but really human relation. Thank you so much, Raundi Mwenda. And you know, it's Friday, so ploti mingi ni Raundi Mwenda. All right, so I'm going to just take this short breather, go back to DJ One. I hope you loved the conversation. I have learned so much. There's nothing as beautiful as, you know, being entertained